and that we can tell their story of why the brand, why the collective, even if it's not under WTF name, is important, then people will start to look at that flagship as a spot where it's like, oh, these guys are trying to make a revolution for good, right? Peacefully through the means of people being able to be self-supported through this portal.
Welcome back to Inspired Inc., the CWS podcast, a show where we promote indie comic creators and become inspired by what they create and their journey of creating it. I'm your host, Brandon Bloxdorf, and today on the show, we have John Jones and Jack Egan, founders of WTF Comics, and we talk about their approach to operating a publishing company, what a comic book collective means to them, and how they want to help change the industry. All this and so much more in today's Inspired Inc. How long have you guys been at this point too?
Well, you know, production and creativity, I mean, for over a decade now, Jack and I have been working together. As far as comic books, you know, we've had the idea of either comic books or animations as a modality for a long time. And then during COVID, when we reached extreme boredness, we were like, you know, that if this is it, if, you know, this is the end of the world with COVID and we're never getting out of our houses again, we should commit to doing comic books because, you know, we've been putting it off for a long time and now we got all the free time we could ask for. So came up with our first storyline and then we went from there, and then everything else that we had worked on previously, and then some new ideas, new artists and new creators came into the fold, and we started marching forward and making it happen.
It's been the reason I laughed is it's been like John and I have been working together for such a long time. There's not like a place where I think we said like, stop all this, we're going to do comic, you know, it was like, we just sort of woke up here.
Yeah, I feel you that. I totally understand you on that one. Apollo, when it became a publisher, it just like happened overnight. I was just like, oh, I guess I'm just going to do this now. And this is the avenue. It's just happening at this point. You know, you kind of just go with the flow when it's working, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, very much so. Because we were more in the video side of the world, you know, we've been working with feature films and pilots and you name it. And we were working on a TV show that we're still wrapping up issues with, where we're interviewing comic book creators, like old school. Like we had, you know, J.M. DeMatteis and Neil Adams came on. So I think we might have the last interview with Neil Adams before he passed, for instance. And Keith Griffin, we've got one of his last long form interviews. And these weren't short little like Comic-Con walk up to the table like, oh, I love your work. And they're like, thanks. Yeah, I'm inspired by my fans. It was like, you know, sitting down and getting real with them and kind of doing more like that inside the actor studio style. We didn't have a lot of tears. I think we might have had a few, but that's where it came from. And we were sitting around like, wow, these guys are totally ignored and neglected, and they're great storytellers. And we're kind of like looking at the budgets, you know, when you worked in feature films, like telling a story, you start talking about millions right away. With comics, you know, that's not even on the table. There's no reason to spend $1 million on a comic.
Yeah, so exactly.
We just kind of talked and dabbled, and next thing, like John, I don't know about you, but it really felt like we were like, all right, we're gonna do one book, and we like woke up and we had a slate. Like people around the world started sending us stuff, and like we were like, what?
Yeah. There's like this master storyline that came in, and we were like, all right, now we have enough work for like a couple lifetimes to like flesh out this entire main storyline. Yeah. So that kind of where everything is spun off from there.
Dude, that's sick. That's cool to hear how it just like comes together sometimes. You know, I've heard stories about the struggle of putting things together and thinking of things, but it sounds like you have a very similar story to what I've been, you know, witnessing within my comic publishing journey. Is that I opened the floodgate a little bit, and then I got like just drowned, and it just like, now we were looking at our projects for the next 3 years, and we're just like, I just tried to put out an anthology, and now I'm just like backed up on stuff and personal projects. And that's kind of the dream too. You know what I mean? You want it no other way, in a sense. I'd rather be overwhelmed with cool work than like underwhelmed with some of it. And we just had Daryl on the show with us as well. I hadn't realized until we were interviewing that, you know, I was going to talk to you guys, and I was talking to Daryl. I was checking out his books, and I'm like, you guys really do have a very like diverse and vast slate of creators and books. Did all of this just really just happen organically for you guys? Was there any intentions on like working around certain storylines or types of genres?
Yeah, I mean, we had conversations about, we would look at the slate and go, wow, we never wanted to be a company putting out all monster books or something, you know,
Right.
or all superhero books. I think, I mean, John, I mean, I think for both of us, it's always a little different, just the way that we run the company. But I think in general, it kind of just came from us. We saw art and loved the art, or were interested by the art, or whatever. That's just what drew us in. But it was the person. If we started talking to the person and we were like, wow, we dig this person's energy, we dig their commitment, like they're like-minded the way that we are, in the ways that we think are most important for a creative professional project to go. And that really started to become our sort of rule there of how we were gonna, like, we dropped some artists. I can't remember if John said that earlier, but like we had some people come in, we had some people we pushed out. And so we like learned, we kind of opened those floodgates, and then we've kind of closed them some more because we were like, hold it, like you do have to pay attention to what you're choosing, right? Like on some level, we weren't just publishing anything, but
and you know, a lot of that has to do with, oh, sorry, Jack.
You're fine.
A lot of that has to do with like, moral standard and timely delivery and stuff like that, and quality of work. So you can have great quality, but if you don't deliver on time, it doesn't really mean anything to us, because, you know, if we have a book that we're trying to get out in 5 months and it's going to take 5 years, you know, it's a disagreement of how things need to be delivered. And if you get distracted by other things, and, you know, life happens. But if it's not a reasonable communication level that we can reach with you to be able to move forward, you know, things change in that way. And then, you know, a lot of it has to do with ultimate goal and vision. So, you know, our long-term goal is to take a lot of this to full motion comic, you know, full motion animation from comic book. And so, you know, we're going to be launching WTFA, which is our animation portion of what we're doing, and start doing a whole lot of stuff behind full motion there, along with, you know, we also make a whole bunch of criteria around lunchboxes, stickers, T-shirts. We're looking into board games and all that kind of stuff with our models. You know, all of our IP, pretty much where we want to be going. And if somebody can kind of hold that vision with us as well of what does it look like for us to build together, you know, we're looking for folks that have that kind of business mind that might also, you know, they might be artists, but they're also into the idea of what does it mean for me to go out and represent myself. I don't want to just, you know, be a part of, you know, something, just doing artwork. I want to build a brand with somebody. I want to honor the name of WTF, you know, and for us, WTF doesn't mean what most folks, you know, think WTF means. For us, it's a world transmission frequency, you know. So what are you doing in your own personal creative life to really be able to spread a message to the world, to bring more people in? And how can we come together to be able to really try to change what the industry is about right now? And I think it takes a representation of everybody kind of putting out their very best, and then having a common flag that they fly about a collective, and how that can really change things. So if somebody comes in with that kind of, you know, revolutionary or a paradigm shifting spirit, you know, we're all in, because they're speaking our language. And then, you know, we'll see where the delivery goes from there. You know, ideas are great, and actions speak louder words. And you decide your own level of involvement, like a Fight Club goes. You know, so
you go, dude. Honestly, I swear I say that all the time when I work with people, and it comes from Fight Club. You choose your level of involvement. And when it comes to indie comics, it's so true in the aspect. That's wild you say that as well. It's a big part of how I operate and how I do things when I choose people. Like, we will help you, we will guide you, we will give you all the advice, we will give you all the tools, I will support you, but you choose your level of like where you're going to be and how it's going to perform. You know, like if you're asking and hoping for X amount in your book or Kickstarter or something, it's like, did you put that amount of effort into it as well for your expectations? You know,
oh my God,
there's so much. Oh, go on.
So I was just gonna say, juggling expectations. Like, with our jobs, right? A lot of what I'm doing day to day is talking with the artist or the writer or the person who's put in the money in, or the creator, or who, you know, sometimes there are 2 of those jobs or 3, and that's leveling expectations. If I had like advice for indie creators, I'd be like, learn what's actually happening in the independent comic world, and then set your expectations in a realistic, it can be fair. Like, I'm not saying go out and put yourself cheap, but we probably get a dozen messages or something a week from somebody who's like, I want $300 a page. I want this. I have a brilliant idea. Give me $50,000 to make my book. And you're like, well, you've never completed a book. Your artwork looks like you started last week. You know, it's just like, come. And the thing is, we're not even saying no to those people. We're just saying, bring your expectations down, be realistic. And you'd be amazed what you can get done. Like,
yeah, no, you guys are completely right. Like, and I've experienced a lot of this. It's kind of cool, just refreshing hearing this. I'm like, okay, someone else is having these struggles. But that's like one of those things, those expectations of like, don't undervalue yourself. For sure, your art is worth, you know, a couple bucks, and you should be putting a price point on there. And I've seen creators kind of lowball themselves just a little bit, and I'm like, you could have totally just raised the bar, and you would have hit that goal 100% because you have the support. But then I had, you know, a few years ago when I was first trying to make comics, and I feel like this gets, you know, making a comic book as a writer or as any creator, it could be really discouraging when you're working with some art, like other artists and creators that are overvaluing or, you know, expecting more than what you're even capable of doing. And I know we were trying to map out like a 6-issue series with someone, and it turned out it would be like $90,000 if we were doing their page rate they were asking for. And we were like, this isn't realistic. Like, look at our status, look what we're doing. And we seem to understand that. But then when we turn the page and be like, let's work on a book together, do you think that we're some big corporate, you know, company that can do all these things? And it's like, no, we're still out of the basement. Like, we're still, it's nothing is moving past that.
Well, what kills me is like, you know, when you start talking to the guys working at Marvel, there is a ceiling. You know, and I don't think independent artists realize how low that ceiling really is, and that and where it is, because they get into this like, I'll just keep charging more per page, and that way I can quit my job. And it's like, no, you also have to draw faster. You also have to start timing. Like, a lot of the pros that we talk to that we have huge respect for, like, if they say it's the rule kind of guys, they're like, yeah, you need a timer. You have to learn to sit down and time yourself, and it's also about your management of your time. You can't make a living drawing one page every 2 weeks, because that's selfish. You're being lazy. They're like, no, you need to be able to sit down, turn out pages, but it has to be your quality work. You have to bring that up to speed too. And I think that balance is hard for creators and artists. And, you know, it's just interesting working with writers versus artists, because we, like I said, we did so much in the cinema world. Like, John and I have a lot of conversations when we're working on stories where we're like, oh, hold up, this isn't a movie.
Yeah, it's not a movie.
Yeah, you know, like we catch ourselves doing things where like our expectations of comics isn't always reasonable. Where, you know, you can't write when you're writing out a script for a comic motion, essentially. You can't say that we see this person do this, and you got to tell the artist, like, these are the key points. Like, we need to see them pick up the cup. That matters more to me than them putting it down or whatever.
Yeah.
And so those things change, you know, but that's a constant. I think in any creative, financial, business situation, your expectations are what's going to make you succeed or fail.
Yeah, dude, I love
you're
that.
going to do 50 pages in 2 weeks and then send them to, you know, because that's you could be the greatest artist in the world with the best rate, and you're gone. We're done.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, and some of those artists I work with, it trips me out because I can't keep up with them sometimes, where they're just sending me pages, and I'm like, oh, you're getting better and faster, and this is like, oh, I gotta start writing my script and working on this story. I thought I was 6 months ahead. Now I gotta like jump onto this, and
now 6 months behind.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what you just said, I think, is a very key thing for all artists to like really consider and practice is work on your speed and your quality. Time yourself, lay out a page, and then time it. See how fast and how much better you can do that page, and continue. Maybe even make a book for yourself like that. Do a practice routine to help build your quality and speed so you could take on more work and you're not stuck on one issue, you know, and it's indie comics for sure. There's no definite timelines. There's no publisher waiting. You know, I mean, like when we're talking about publishing comics, it's like one of those things where it's like we have expectations and we have wants and schedules. But like if we need to shift some stuff around, we can do that. We're not like some Marvel company that's, I don't think you guys are going through like Diamond and stuff like that. So, I mean, stuff like that is a little bit flexible, but being professional and trying to be professional and give yourself those deadlines, give yourself that ability to like act to their role. You know, they always say dress for the role you want. That's you dressing for the role that you want to be in. And that's by hitting those deadlines, producing a book, and not like, you know, meeting quotas on what you're getting paid for as well. I love that. You guys are working a lot with like business wise. And how have you guys felt, you know, meeting creators that understand business and don't understand business? Where do you find your ways to help leverage that? And how do you assist the creators that really don't get the business side to really, you know, be in that business mindset?
Yeah, I think that you know, in the entire creative industry in general, most of the folks that are creative driven, they don't really have a good grasp on business. Whether it's legal documents, whether it's negotiations, whether it's understanding what royalties versus equity are, that they just haven't had those conversations or that experience. So they're not really looking at that factor. And for a lot of them, it's about the here and now, today. What can you pay me today? Because their immediate needs trump any down the line needs of what the bigger goal or vision is. And I think on a lot of aspects, you know, if somebody's down for growth, if somebody's down to be a professional and is willing to communicate, we're here to help them. You know, we're here to reflect with them, even if it's something where we're friends with them and we don't necessarily do business with them in the long term. We still offer objective truth to what it is that their world perspective is, so that they can grow as artists. And that we hope that maybe down the line they do want to work with us. Maybe down the line they just become successful and they say, "Hey guys, that $1 million of advice that you gave me for free 99 was worth the life change of even meeting you. And now I've got an opportunity I want to share with you because of what you offered to me." And that kind of stuff is what we're really intending to grow as far as a collective. You know, Jack and I are the bosses, right? But it really comes down to how can we build the right kind of collective in a society that usually in these bigger corporations, no matter what business sector it's in, there's guys at the top who win, and then everybody else is subservient to them and to the vision that's there. And what we really want is that if you're creative, if you've got a talent or you've got a story or whatever, we want you to come in. We want to set the expectation right from the bottom. But if we win, the way that Jack and I have always thought, if we win, everybody's going to win. If you've been here from the beginning and you've been loyal to what it is, and that you're willing to learn, we're willing to learn, and we can grow together, that the business that comes in around that, and that we're all learning together, that if we hold that common flag, that we're going to be able to revolutionize a space, market better, because each person then becomes their own sovereign ability to go out and promote their creative art form, instead of it having to be a hierarchy of how do I get in the gate? How do I sell this book? It's a competition mind versus a creative mind. And we're really leaning into and learning about the creative mind and creative aspects as we reflect it into the world, instead of the competition mind of how much can I gain from this person? And then once I get what I need, you know, you're just going to be in a box. We write our contracts in that way. We try to explain it to creative folks in that way. And we're pretty much an open schoolhouse for those that want to listen. This is why we do things in the way that we do, from experience of what we've learned and the mistakes that we've made, that now we know the actual path of how you can actually get yourself out there.
Yeah, the tide should lift all boats, you know?
Yeah.
I will say too, it's like, it's funny because what I see a lot is people, when we start working with a lot of artists or creators or whatever, there is a very casual sense to it. And then they see our contract, and we've had people who get a little like shocked, scared, where they're like, whoa. Why is there more than one page? And we're like, yeah, like this, like you come from people who, like, we've been dealing with bigger projects, like larger corporate entities, and the good things that you can learn from them is like, you do need to write a proper contract, because one of the first people we started working with and connecting with talked a lot about being ripped off. You know, when we joined up with Tom, who I don't know if you've had Tom Rash on here yet, but you should definitely get Tom on here. He did Punisher 2099 in the 90s. He worked for Marvel. He was a big 90s artist. And just through some life things and stuff, his life is, you know, just taking big shifts. He doesn't really do that anymore, but he had all these properties he came up with when he was like 11, 15, 20, even while he was at Marvel. And, you know, part of why they didn't come out was he got ripped off by big companies, by publishers who have a great reputation, that if I named them, you'd be like, there's no way. And I'm like, yes, like they would sign artists, take on their IP, do nothing with it, do a quick little promotion where that looks good. Oh, we got you on this TV show. We got you this, there's this contract on the table. Then nothing happens. And a year later, 15 years later, when you say, I want my IP back, I want to continue with it, they go, okay, pay us. We own it. Buy it. Buy your IP off of us to continue. And so we got involved with some of these artists, brought in legal teams and stuff, and worked up paperwork to get those situations resolved.
That's great. That's fantastic for you guys.
Way we've helped indie artists is we're trying to show them like that. Don't be afraid of paperwork, of contracts, embrace them. Like look at every little detail and understand if it's done correctly, there's things in there to protect you. There's things in there to protect us. And so we have a clear understanding so we can walk away. And that's our big thing is we want everyone to feel like they can walk away if they want to. That there's some out, right? That we're not trapped together forever, or that we steal your IP from you, or call you up and say to buy it back from us kind of thing. But we also set limits in there. We're like, we're not going to invest and pay for your book and your idea and put out, 6 of your books. And then you want to walk away and own it. Like, well, wait a minute. We paid you to make the art. We paid you to put out the books. We paid for, we did all that work. That we do deserve some compensation, but that's what paperwork's there for, is to make sure that you guys are safe, that we're safe. And I'm a writer, I'm not just the guy worrying about contracts from that sense. I want a contract as a writer. That makes a difference to me. I look at those things. John, we have this conversation about how can we change it for this book, for this artist, for this team to make it fair, and how can we, because not all books are the same, not all teams are the same. Sometimes you've got your penciler, your inker, your colorist. And now we're getting into having music, animation, and how do those IPs travel? How does that contract kind of work its way through that process so that it stays fair for everybody, regardless of their job?
That's so great because contracts are, especially as an indie creator, very daunting. You know what I mean? Even creating when we were making our first contracts for the anthologies and, we kind of realized our mistakes from the first one and we had to re-edit it for the, second anthology and third one, et cetera. And we're really realizing the density that goes in there and what we need to have our input in and what we need to take our input out and just let it be between creators. And that's kind of a weird part. And probably maybe even off camera, we could talk more about contracts personally, because it sounds like the point we're getting at as a publisher, you guys have a lot of experience in. And it does sound like you guys are like Neil Adams. How can I put this? Neil Adamsing a lot of indie creators by helping them find that freedom and find that independence, kind of like what Neil did for Jack and trying to get the pages back and trying to help creators and get them out of that corporate struggle of just you get your stuff taken away from you once you go into these higher ladders and it really isn't too worth it. Indie comics as well are full of independence. And I really admire that you guys aren't trying to own these IPs. You guys are just trying to support them and publish them and help these creators, right? And so are you helping also put together teams and become that editorial aspect? Or are you finding completed works and publishing those out?
As editor in chief, everything comes through me, every single page. For every book, I keep track of them. I follow them. We have creators that are totally independent. They're in another country. They've already put out their book in one language and they're bringing it to us and we're just translating it to English. Oh, wow. And in that sense, I'm pre-reviewing that work before we agree to do that. But everything else, if I'm not the writer on it, if John's not the writer on it, if one of us isn't the creator, then we are looking at every single thing that comes through and sort of doing that, grammar. I don't know how many independent books you pick up where you're like, that's the wrong your, it's, sucks. It's such a good book. And then you hit something so petty that you're like, oh, wow. Or it's just a straight spelling.
Just one friend look at it.
Yeah.
Avoid those little mistakes and whatnot.
Yeah. We do a lot of that edit stuff too, the creative edit, but also, and we try to guide them. We have people that come to us that, like I said, they'll send us their work and say, okay, $50 for pencils, $50 for inks. That's my rate. And I look at their work and I go, wow, your layouts suck. And it's nothing personal. It's you're just not there yet, but you're close. But you're not there. I got this guy over here that can do layout pencils. He'll do it for $20 and they're amazing. And because he churns them out. He's like, yeah, I'm just designing the panels and figuring out that's no big deal. So, all right, so I'll hire you to do inks for 50. And they go, wow, well, if I'm just doing inks, it's 75.
Right.
And you're like,
yeah.
You're like, no, don't.
So you're not getting the package deal now. If the price goes up, you have to.
Yeah, and I'm like, but you're not even giving me as good of the, so it's I'm not getting that. So we spend a lot of time doing that. We find those teams for the creators. we send them options over and over again. I mean, even between John and I, we do that. If I have a book or if he has a book, we're tagging each other on Facebook. Oh, did you see this art, or did you see this one? Yeah. So,
dude, that's awesome. And there's a lot of current publishers coming out from big creators at this point. And I've had like a critique about them the last, like, as I've seen them emerge, and I'm watching these people that were top names in the comic book industry for, top companies creating their own publishing outlets. And my issue with all of this, and I've been very vocal about it. I've been very vocal on this show about it, to be honest. Some people might be tired of it, but like, I don't feel like they're doing anything for the comic book community as a whole. I feel like they're creating their own imprints, and I feel like, yeah, it's cool that, they're just trying to own their own individual stories and their own work. And that's what we're all trying to do. But I don't understand how they're trying to advance comics and open up in a sense of like, we want to bring new creators in and highlight new creators. It just seems to be the same circle of people in the comic book newsroom, and I'm seeing the same names for the last 10-15 years, and now they're doing their own thing, and it's like, cool, those stories sound interesting, but what are you doing to advance and make comics a better place to be? And for you as WTF Comics, what are you guys trying to do in specific to like change comics and change indie comics and do something for the community in itself?
Yeah, I think that of course it starts with that's a great question. I think it starts with quality of work, your body of quality of work first. And then, of course, being associated or being aligned with some of those names. But, it comes back to philosophy, like we were talking about just before. And how do we create the platform that speaks for the artist and that the artists are drawn to wanting to be under one banner flag? I think that you have sectionality of a bunch of different people wanting to do the same thing. And if they came together, there would be a place where everybody could go and view, and that the ability to showcase a lot of new artists, old artists would be much higher than trying to section off and somebody finding a small pocket or niche of something they like. That you can be able to bring enough people together to be able to see enough stuff that would really be able to move the selling of books along, right? So it's important to do the art for yourself, yes, but in order to have a sustainable industry, we've got to produce revenue as an industry. And right now, comic books are suffering in that way. And so if your goal is to create a great industry like manga does, manga has these huge outlets that everything comes out of, that everybody knows where to look for pages and pages and pages on one website where everything is. It's not a featured website. And so we're of the idea that we can work with anybody, even if it's just by referral, that, hey, you want to we're thinking about putting up a page on our website that's just advertisement of other people's books, right? And maybe we don't take a whole lot from it, but people will know where to go, just like this show, know where to go to hear, to learn, to educate themselves on stuff that they like. And artists will feel comfortable putting their stuff there, being like, oh, I know these guys are just trying to create a portal for the industry. And so I think that there's a certain amount of stuff that you have to do for yourself just for sustainability. You've got to protect yourself with contracts. You've got to advertise your brand. You've got to do that. But you also have to be cooperative to be able to say, as much as I want to be an island, I've got to build bridges to build an industry that I think is self-sustainable for other artists and for new people to come in and know where to look. And if we can get on shows like this with other publishers, and we can meet artists who are like, I have this idea, I have this goal, or I've been taken advantage of in this way, and that we can tell their story of why the brand, why the collective, even if it's not under WTF name, is important. Then people will start to look at that flagship as a spot where it's like, oh, these guys are trying to make a revolution for good, right? Peacefully, through the means of people being able to be self-supported through this portal. And that kind of philosophy is really how you change really any culture, any organism. So I think that's where we start, is that, there needs to be a lot more conversation around, all right, what are your common goals? What's our common denominator together? And how do we create together a place where everybody can go and look and we all win? Again, the tide floats all boats, but how do we make that into a reality instead of us needing to be sectional, getting rid of the competition, and how do we make it fair to everybody that gets involved? So that's my 2 cents on that.
I mean, John hit it on the head too. He just said, like, you talk to anybody in comics, they basically all will say, well, you don't get into comics to get rich. Right. And the fact that said so much should be a big red flag, right? Like, like that. You're not just saying you can't get rich. You're not just saying you don't want to get rich. You're saying you can't get rich. You're saying that there's no money.
Putting that negativity into it right when you say it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
you're
it's like,
manifesting that in that sense right away, you know?
Yeah, you have to start thinking like a business, like John was saying. You know, you have to advance the not just your book, but the field of comics to make comics a more viable business market. And John actually knows way more about this stuff than I do, but like one of the things we've gotten into is making our comics more interactive. So the stuff that I can speak from is like with our Kickstarters, which we've actually planned and created 6 Kickstarters, which we have not launched. We want all of them done before we launch so that one can come after another. Because what we saw in the industry too, when we spoke to readers and fans, was they were like, indie books, I get one, I love it, and I have to wait a year for another book? Like, that's ridiculous. That sucks. And I lose interest and I don't want to support you guys anymore, no matter how good it is. So we were like, all right, let's stop putting out books. And I think a lot of people are like, what's going on with WTF? Like, they're active, but we're not seeing any new books. And we pulled the plug. We're not putting out books. We're finishing storylines so that when we do put these things out, not only can you get the whole story pretty much right away, or with it, we can at least give you a timeline, but we can be interactive and say, like, if you join on this Kickstarter at this level, we have a form you have to fill out, and it applies your real life information to a virus that exists, an STD that exists in this story, and you will get your certificate of death. So it will tell you how you and your lover would die. So now it's become beyond just, I've got a book. There's something interactive going on. But where John's really gotten involved is the NFT market, Bitcoin, blockchain, just how do we advance those things? And there's been some really cool meetings that I don't always understand what everybody's saying, but they involve using those things to give the owners new options for how they can interact with us, with the story, and the way that we can earn money working with the fans in a way that works for them. Like, we're not saying give us $1,000, but we're saying, hey, you can buy this thing in this way, but if you have NFT, availability, then you can buy it in this way. And there's other things you can collect and other ways you can experience this story.
Yeah, it's a digital Patreon type of access. So like, we're working with smaller blockchains. I'm big into crypto. I'm big into self-custody, sovereignty, and the ability to kind of own your own destiny, just like independent artists want to do. And so I see a crossover in a lot of NFTs where somebody takes pride in the small community that they're part of, and that they've bought something a lot for the ideology that's beyond it, and that they have this great community that they can lean on now. And so I found stuff like on Radix where they only have like 30,000 something users. But if you go into that community and you start speaking towards the mission of being able to promote artists, that there's devs that are reticent to be like, hey, let me help you build this. Let me help you do this for free, and that we'll take back ends with you, but we'll build it out, and you guys will have a representation on our building blockchain, and that we can expose you to 30,000 members right now, half of which every time we put out an NFT, every time we put out a project, they're already buying in. And so finding the right niches, and then us being the experimental guinea pig to go in and do it, and then being able to show on a paper to another artist that comes in and say, hey, this works. We want to give you the same exposure. We want to bring you up behind us in this thing that we took an experiment on and we spent the last year building out. And now we've got a provable way for you to make money and focus on your art form. And I think that's another way about, going back to your original question, changing the industry. We got to get more creative, and not just in the panels, not just in the issues, but also in the business market and what we're willing to explore and what we're willing to merge. So I think that, we could be comparable to manga, in the long run. And it's just going to take some work about how it is that we build that kind of business model.
Man, that's so much to unpack on there too. That's really interesting. I love your guys' like a new approach to finding different methods. It's kind of like when I talk to creators about like, don't just go to comic book conventions, like find other conventions to highlight your stuff. You guys are doing that, but like in a business mindset, not just in like, where can I table differently? You're like, where can I market differently? Where can I find these other things? And that's a very interesting path to go down. And it's one that is opening up another section of people who might or might not even be into comics, and now you're pulling them in. You're getting a whole different demographic that's not really being looked at or attacked, and that's a good strategic move right there. And having such an in with that as well. and what you guys are saying about, working on storylines. You're not putting out books at the moment, but you guys are working on books. There's a lot of behind the scenes things going on right now. And do you ever feel like you get pushback from, maybe this is part of your filtration system as well, but pushback on like creators being impatient or not understanding why they need to wait and how we need to figure this out now? When do I get paid? When can I market this book? When can I go table? Like, I made it. I want it in my hands. When can it come into existence? And how do you guys overcome that type of aspect too?
Just like you said, you have to sit down, explain it to them. And if they don't understand, then we can't work with them,
Yeah.
We will say that, artists get paid when they work with us. So if we're building a book behind the scenes, we don't, a lot of artwork, we don't make back end deals. So if you deliver pages, you get paid for those pages. If we have a pause in production, as far as like getting a book done, and for whatever reason, the financer on that book has a hard time or breaks a leg or any of those kind of things, we're very clear about what that experience is and what's going on with them, and that we're going to shift you to another book, or that we're going to focus on some other things until such time that they can come back to the table. But if you've delivered pages to us, you get paid for those pages. We don't ever have debts. We're never trying to have somebody wait on finishing a book that we've got money set aside for. And that most of the times, and this is a secret sauce, most of the time when we go to Kickstarter, the book is complete. It's really about getting a marketing budget together to be able to pump that book into the masses. And so we want to be able to cover the cost of the book and then have a small marketing budget to be like, how many visual seers can we get this book in front of now that it's completed? And we've had it in the canon for a while. So a lot of the back work is really just being preparation for the Kickstarter now that the book is complete and we're ready to go to market. But we want to get a huge draw of people interested in the Kickstarter. And then we want to use that Kickstarter money to launch that, for the next 6 months of, here's our new book. Anybody interested in comics, please come look at our page. We're ready for you. So that's really where we're at.
And so, like, my question here is, and it's not like directly like, how are you funding all this? But like, what advice do you have for other creators and publications to operate similarly to the way you do in the terms of like paying creators before Kickstarters and stuff like that? Like, it seems like you guys have a very solid way to do it. So what's like a good, advice you could give so people could try to get on that level to where you're operating?
Jack and I eat beans and rice regularly. And I live out of my car. No, kidding. We had some expendable capital. I'm an investor by trade. Jack's got a great solid job. Went to school for a long time for that, and so there was some expendable capital. We had some stuff saved up, and we decided to make the investment. Maybe foolishly, into comic books. No, I'm kidding. We made an investment into our passion and hobby. So I will say that, if you want to hold that as a code to pay artists, you're going to take some sacrifices. Just like any business, you're going to take some sacrifices, but especially if it's a creative passion that, Jack has to tell me all the time, you dream so big about the millions of dollars. Let's do this to have fun. And so This has been my modality to get back into what's important to me, what's important in my heart, what makes me have fun. And this is fun for me. This is fun for us. Me working with Jack is fun for us. We've made money off of projects. We haven't made money off of projects. But the key essential is that the abundance is about the fun that we're having and the childlike humor and light that we get to put in these pages. Given that a lot of our stuff is adult content now, but that's the stuff that we really enjoy. And so we put it out there as that. We really are looking to focus on that. And that's the story, man, is like, if you're getting into this particular market, you've got to be okay with losing everything you put in, but also be focused on looking towards what can I do creatively here and having fun. I have fun in the crypto space. I have fun in the niches that we find. I have fun looking at the philosophies of how we can change the dynamics of people being able to find their own independence. And like, if you're not having fun in this industry, like you're not going to last anyways. So I really feel like, the big vision does play. Like for me, it's about having the animation and puppetry studio where we can bring creators as a hub and then represent what we started on a very small basis to anybody who comes in under that flagship. And with that, each day is a journey, just like in life. And that you just got to really tune into that the process that you're drawn towards is what you're here to do, and that even if nobody else really believes in it, if it lights you up, continue down that road, man. Like, and be willing to go for it. Set aside what you're willing to lose, and go for it. But be all about it. Don't get discouraged by it when your book doesn't sell 1 million copies. Because most likely the first time it's not. But who's to say in 10 years and the market turns and you were doing your hobby full time, that somebody's not like, bro, you guys have 100 works, and you guys work with 1,000 other artists who have 100 works, and they're all cool as f-, and I love all of your stories. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I'm able to cuss on here. I talk like a sailor.
We have an editor, yeah.
Okay, cool. And,
yes.
yeah. And so, like, they're all awesome, and I really feel what you guys are doing, and so I bought every copy I could. There's going to be somebody else who has just as much passion about it. I'm really big about magnetism. There's going to have somebody who's just as much passion about what you're putting out. And eventually you're going to have those fanatical fans. Eventually you're going to have those folks that are like, I see what you guys are doing. I support you since day one. I pay the subscription to your Patreon each month. I love what you got going on. And, again, it's not about that. It's great to have a pleased audience, but that you eventually start to see those returns in the world. That's what we hope,
Yeah, and I would remind people, don't try to do everything. Do the things you can do the things you're good at. Find people who can do the other things. Do it because it's fun. Be playful, and don't sit around and say, I have this great idea for a book, but it's never gotten made because of that or this or that. It's you. You can not go out to dinner one night and put that money aside. I mean, pages can get very expensive, but if you're smart about what you're doing and you say, I'm not going to start with a 10-book series. Let me start with one book. Let me try to get as much story in 24 pages as I can, and then say, now what can I reasonably afford per page, even if it's just 1 page a month, and create that schedule for yourself. And then you have to actually do it. You cannot blame anybody except yourself. If you've got an idea for a comic nowadays, you can save up and do 1 page a year, easily.
Yeah.
Like,
Honestly. And the amount of community that's out there, once you start getting involved, the amount of creators that will just kind of throw themselves at you to work with you, be like, dude, I'm not even worried about the money. I just want to make this book. I just want to, you seem like a great person and creator. I want to work with you. Dude, I can't tell you the amount of people have reached out over the past, year to like Apollo and to like our, creators just to do exactly that. And then we work out deals with them, because we want to make sure they're taken care of. We want to make sure they're comfortable with agreeing with us. But that's where it starts. It starts with you and putting yourself out there and saying this is going to happen. And I love what you guys are, how you're talking about with investments, and that makes a lot of sense to me, and I think it will to other creators, is that you invested in yourselves and you use what you do basically on a day-to-day, and you took some sacrifices and you try to turn things around and shape what you have. And it, like you said, you didn't just start this last year or a couple weeks ago. You have been at this for years working at it, and that's what it takes is time and patience and investments. You guys are investing not only money and stuff like that, but you're investing in yourselves, you're investing in your brand, into your stories, into your creators and the business, and you're not rushing things out to be like, well, I hope we figure this out as we go and it's gonna fumble and all this. It's like, no, let's look at the big picture. We want to do this for a long time. And I think a lot of creators want to rush things and have it happen now, this week, tomorrow, yesterday, when it's like, you know what? I want to be making comics for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Let's start now. And let's start building those blocks, like a house isn't built in a day. You have to make, just like a comic isn't built in a day. You make the blueprints, you do the layouts, you start building from there. And you can't all do that in one sitting in an afternoon. So it doesn't take that to make a book. And I've come across a lot of impatient creators. I've tried to work with a lot of creators in that aspect, but it comes down to, again, vision and understanding. And people will learn lessons, and whether it be a hard lesson or maybe they just need to take some time to reflect. But that's part of the lesson of comics, is that it takes time and you got to be patient and work with others. It's a big collaborative movement, and we're not always on the same page as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because a lot of what we do, I don't think of as work, So staying up late, not getting as, I almost never get 8 hours of sleep. But a lot of times I could get 7 or I could get 6, but I sacrifice another hour to sit down and play in Photoshop because that's fun to me, you know. We do a lot of stuff like we're like, oh, we should create a language for this character or this people. And then we're like, well, wait, hold on. Let's not just create a language. We should create a font so that we have a font to the language. And then, okay. And so then we go down a rabbit hole of like, wait, what was the first printed human language? Wait, what's the next couple? And where do they get those letters from? And okay. And now we've created, you know, a dozen different types of not just English fonts for our books to make them unique, but literal made up languages. And I will say that when I flip through a lot of people's books, I do feel like there's a rushed, like, I want to do my story of a superhero, but I'm going to make him like me. And they just kind of spit that out on 24 pages. And you're like, wow. So this looks like a billion other books. Is lacking that depth, that extra bit. And comics are awesome, but yeah, they've also, like, people are like, well, I want to tell the stories that aren't being told. And I'm like, but are you telling stories that have never been told? Because that's kind of impossible. Right. Like, whatever your story is, go to Kickstarter and start Googling keywords. Someone's putting out a book almost exactly like yours in terms of the general story. So what are you, like, going back to your question earlier, which I think is an important question people aren't asking enough, is what are you doing to improve the comic book industry? Are you actually telling a story in a different way? It doesn't have to be a new story because there aren't really any, but can you tell it in a different way? You know, can you give it more depth? Is your version the Lord of the Rings version? You know, where somebody's took a lot of time building the world and tracking the story and the characters and everything? Or is yours the McDonald's, you know, another version of the same thing? Like, people like it, but how many times can you eat a fast food burger before you want a steak? You know?
Yeah, dude, honestly, yeah, that's a great way to put it. I mean, looking at your art as, you know, it's part of you. So make it as individualistic as possible and, you know, show yourself off, you know, show your stories off, show what you want to be out there off. Man, that's so cool. That's really inspiring what you guys are doing. And it sounds like, you know, I work a lot with like lesser known comics and we have a lot of the LKC team on here. And the mindset you have is so similar to what lesser known comics has been doing in terms of community, in terms of fairness for artists and, you know, trying to build an empire, but also supporting and taking away that competition mindset and being like, we're in this together. We want to work together. We want to uplift together and move and transform comics, but also not withhold secrets. A big thing about making all of this is just being transparent. And if it worked for me, hopefully it can work for you. I now work with pretty much any anthology that goes through LKC, and I help curate and give people like the ins and outs of what we've learned and, you know, the process and how to promote and how to like work all that. And it's like, I'm not going to hold any of that back. If someone asks me how to write an anthology, I will tell you every single bit of information I know that I've learned that could work. And I will try to give you new ideas to try for yours. And I think that's what we all kind of got to do as like a publisher and as creators is inform and, you know, be educators at the same time, because especially as like editors as well, like, you know, if we're operating the business and the creative side of it, we know a lot. And, you know, why hoard that information just for ourselves when we could transform stuff? So what's your like next few years looking like for WTF Comics? What do you have besides the animation? Like, when are you guys looking to release books? How's that schedule going? Are you guys going to be doing conventions? How is that layout going for you as well?
So yeah, earlier, like I said, we've got 6 Kickstarters. Each one just has like one component missing kind of thing. Like there's one that the video is not done. So we're going to finish that video, but I mean, they're done.
That's a brilliant way to lay out too, is prepping all your Kickstarters that you have lined up.
Yeah, because that was a problem. You know, you finish a Kickstarter and then you launch it, you go through the month or whatever, however long you choose to do it. And then you have to spend at least a month sending everything out, right? And then you're going to start building the next Kickstarter. That creates massive delays. So this year, we are launching all of our books. We kind of warned everybody, like maybe at the start of the year we would do it, but we're not setting a deadline because until, you know, at least 3 are 100% done. And I mean, all the pages are done. All the lettering is done. We've printed copies that we have in hand, so we know that the book is correct. We are pre-ordering shirts, buttons, stickers, everything you can think of. We've gotten models made of things that we decided that was, you know, we didn't like this one, we're going to try something else. We've spent years, literally, like I've bought shirts from multiple companies that I personally just wore and washed over and over. And I was just mean to, I would dry them, whatever, just to see who gives us the best shirt. Like we're trying to make sure when we launch these Kickstarters, the merchandise we're giving the fans is cool, good quality stuff that we would want and that it's going to last. And then basically we've done all that work now. And this year, what we're just waiting on is like one book literally has 3 pages left, you know, and that's that book. And then the full first volume comes out. So nothing's coming out pretty much is just 24 pages. Like we have one book that just Black Alpha, just because of how it's being produced. It will be our only and our last book that essentially this Kickstarter will pay for the next book. And that will be the last Kickstarter, and that will pay for the last book. But all of our others are set up so that they are done. The books are complete, the art is complete, all of that's done. The shirts are printed, blah, blah, blah. So those announcements will be coming. We're doing a lot of now. There's certain books we didn't spend as much time promoting early on, and we're trying to just promote them more on social media, just so people are kind of aware of the name. But yeah, you're going to see a big shift this year suddenly, where we go from just doing social media, like kind of posts, to only promoting the Kickstarters and the sales of our books and the movement towards animation, and showing off more of our comic motion stuff and some of the things we've sort of been working on the side, so people start to get an idea of where this full package is going. So for us, and I feel like that's honestly the best way for most people to go, is like prepare something, plan for it, launch it, do it. It's very easy to fall down a rabbit hole and then be working on dozens of books while you're trying to do a Kickstarter, while you're trying to, you know, make the videos, and it's too much. I mean, unless you literally have a company of 100 people, like forget about it. So take the time. You know, I spend a lot of time, I'm just sitting around making cool pictures, and I'm like, this will make a cool post. This will make a cool post. And I'll do a dozen for a book as a story mode or format. And I'll do a dozen square mode, whatever, and I just save them. I just set them aside. And John, this is like a joke with John and I, is I send him stuff and I'll be like, not to be shared or posted, and then I'll send it. And he's like, when can I share this one? And I'm like, not yet. And he's like, but
hold on, this and get it out there. And he's like, not yet. It's saved or something. I'm just like, no, we have followers. They need this content. So yeah.
So there's a balance, and that's where John and I, like personally, the reason WTF works is because of that tug and pull. Like we're both an anchor for the other one in certain ways. Like I'm constantly going, wait. And he's going, come on. And he's always going, no, let's let this character live and be happy. And I'm the one that's going, no, kill them off, make it terrible, make everybody cry. Everyone wants to be suicidal at the end.
Yeah, Jack is like, we'll have like a great story building with the main character that like the book is built around. And he's like, and then on page 9 they die. And I'm like, why? Why would they die? He's like, just caught a stray bullet, dead. And it's like,
it's
no,
for the story.
No, that's not what
I always feel like I'm following the reality of the story, though. I'm like, this character would be dead. This would happen.
Amazing.
And it would be so tragic, but that's what would happen. And he's like, well, but we've learned from each other. There's a character now that I honestly, in the past, I would have slaughtered, you know, several issues ago, and I've let them live. And it's good. I'm like, John's right. Fans do want if they like a character, they want him to live. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, let's have a false death and we bring them back. And he's like, oh, that might work. And it's like, good, thanks.
and I'm like, and then we can
quite
kill
literally dodge the bullet. Like
I say, bring Uncle Ben back and then kill his ass again. Make it the worst.
I love it, dude. I mean, yeah, that's the fun part about being the control of some of this stuff and having that fun, and is experimenting with those story elements and experimenting with, you know, crowd reactions and audience reactions, and, you know, crafting stories is so unique. And I bet we could have an entire other episode where we talk about storycraft. And I'm a huge craft person. I think that's something that we could all dive into for a whole hour on itself. I will also recommend to you guys, I talk about it all the time on the show, and I'm like probably improperly promoting this other channel like crazy, but check out a show called You Are a Storyteller. I think you guys would both really dig it. Brian McDonald and Jesse Bryan, brilliant craft people. I've learned so much from them, and I encourage all like artists and creators to look up You Are a Storyteller. You'll just learn a lot from episode 1 on, and they have fantastic interviews towards the end. But it sounds like something that like we could definitely vibe on and just go down the, you know, rabbit hole of craft and just storytelling as a whole. But this has been a phenomenal interview and an awesome hour of talking to you guys. And I can't thank you guys enough for your time and your insight, because publishing insight is so different from any other aspect of talking to a creator. There's so much more that goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize. And it's lessons I've had to learn, and I'm continuously learning as a new publisher. And I feel like you guys are very much like experienced people that can help mentor and give it that solid advice. There's so much sound insight that I could do a whole episode on contracts with you guys at some point too, and the ins and outs of that. I would love that. But it's great. Yeah, 47 views, not 0 views, 3. Nobody wants to know about it, but it's so valuable to just protect yourself. And what you were saying and how it can help you, like in the future, if you get involved with, these bigger gun publishers that have been owning everything for the last few years. If you get an opportunity with that, I think it's super cool because it can help elevate your fan base, but know what to watch out for. You guys have told us stories on this episode that are like horrific. And if I ever made an IP and I had to buy it back and they didn't even do anything with it, that would just be, well, how do you not give up at that point? Overall, But real fast, why haven't you guys given up on comics, and why haven't, like, this is an insane train ride that you're going on. It's obsessive. You guys are exhausted, and you're just basically about to sprout the biggest next step of your like career in comics. What is the one thing that keeps you both going day in and day out?
I think the storytelling, like you're saying, I mean, we've both got a lot of stories that we want to tell. And so whatever the medium is, our initial title for our company was mixed media. And so it was about being able to tell a story by any means necessary. And so our focus has remained the same, no matter what name brand we're working under. When Jack and I are working together, it's about the story. It's about the stories that we love, that we want to tell. And so if we are not telling these stories, Jack and I are probably both on paper somewhere literally insane. And that if we're not getting this expressive modality out, there's something wrong with us. And so we keep each other going. We both had our low points. We've both gone through transition over the last 5 years. And we're both focused on how it is that we are able to tell our personal stories, but also these creative, energies that are in us, how we're able to express those with others who are going down the path. And then secondly, it's about meeting people like you and other publishers and other creators out there who share in that vision, who share in that feeling in themselves that there are artists who create because they see that it's monetary. And then there's artists who create because they have to create. They literally have to create something. And so for those who have to create, that's why we're here. For those that have no other way to exist on earth but to create something, and it doesn't matter about the money or the time that's spent or the energy, or if anybody else likes it, that we're going to be here creating what we love to create, because that's a feeling of why we're here. That's the second part. I don't know why I'm driven to do what I do. I feel like Jack's vision on that, but there's a reason that we're up all night thinking about storylines, making Photoshops, talking to people online, building an audience, getting to know folks, and it's all about what happens next, the infinite possibilities of meeting the right people and the dream unfolding in a way that, hey, universe, God, unknown possibilities of synchronicities coming together happen to unfold in the perfectly right way, just like a story that's written in a plot line to be able to create a great story. That personal story in life is also why we're here. We're doing what we love. I have the expectation that something good will show up or is coming out of it. And it might be from a podcast like this. It might be that, one of the people that you suggested us to go watch or talk to contacts us and say, hey, we would love to merge or find a path with you guys because we feel the same way. And that's what keeps us going. That's what keeps the fire going for me, is that I have never stopped and I will never stop. And in my dying breath, if nothing has been accomplished monetarily, fine, that's cool. I was abundant because I created, and I didn't see any other way to be other than being able to share and tell stories with others who had stories to tell. And let's gather around the campfire to be able to complete that.
There's a really obscure, I doubt anyone's going to know that there's a band called Jets to Brazil that that's just really obscure. But like back in the 90s, they had a track where one of the lines is, it's not what you earn, it's what you make. And that always stuck with me, because it's like, if you're making a project, $1 million project, it doesn't have to earn $1 million for people to see the value in it, or for you to get that joy out of it, or for the sense of completion of finishing things. You know, when I was just typing on a typewriter, I typed out my stories, and having it in my hands done and printed by typing it on typewriter, that was huge to me. And I get that same dopamine rush, if not more so, when the comics show up printed, you know, with full pictures, with like, I mean, we make the ads for fun. Like, I like doing the layout work and being like, oh yeah, I'll make this cool looking ad. Yeah, that looks pretty boss, you know, like, and then to see it in the book, that dopamine rush is like what, you know, I'd be out in the backyard with a stick in the mud, drawing a picture or trying to write something if I had to, you know. We don't do this because we feel like we have a choice. It's like, this is who we are. We wake up, we do this. We did it in movies. We did it in music videos and TV shows and writing scripts. Now, you know, if you write scripts for a living, which we've both worked in that world, you've got a file cabinet somewhere of scripts nobody bought, you know? And so here we are, we can turn around and say, so even the ones they bought, sometimes we get the rights back, but we can go, hey, now we can tell it our way. Yeah. No questions. No one's telling you, well, you know, another explosion, that's expensive. Like, no one gives a shit in comics.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, yeah, here's my page rate. And we're like, cool, we're going to blow everything up on page 6. Like, cool. Are there body parts or is it just debris? You know, like, that's the only question. And you're like more fire, you know?
Yes. I love it, dude. That's so awesome. This has been super inspiring. I can't express my thanks for you guys. I learned a lot this episode. I can't wait to talk to you guys more on the show and behind the scenes. Do you guys have any convention appearances coming up this year we could shout out?
Not officially planned, just because the books, the Kickstarters, getting those stories out has been priority one. But we have a show that has recorded at Heroes Con, you know, that we kind of always have a relationship with Heroes Con. We always have a relationship with the Durham Comic Con, the NC Comic Con guys. We know a lot of the people who run those things, and we have some connection with these cons. So we'll show up, you know, we will show up at some cons for sure, but we haven't set anything down 100% this year, just because for us, like, if we're going to the cons, then the books all have to be out.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I don't want to show up at a con with another, like, here's the first issue to 4 books. Cause that's really that's where that came from, was at a con. People would walk up, you know, and they pick up your book and they go, oh, I love your book. Cool. Great. I love it. How many are there? 4. Cool. When did the other 3 come out? I don't know.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Let me know when they come out. I'll come back and buy it. And they'd walk away. So we were you know, that's our priority.
Yep.
So check us out on our website, follow our Kickstarter. You know, that would be the big stuff.
Yep.
Dude, that's great.
You know, there's issues with from those comic cons that Jack is talking about. That is, again, the interview of school artists and stuff. And we're in some final stages of it's in the can. We've got season 2 almost finalized in editing. And once that's done, we're hoping to release season 1 or shop it to be able to get it some notoriety as well. And on the back end of that, of course, you'll see some features from WTF Comics in itself and what's going to be coming next with the animation. So, you know, we've got a lot of stuff that's in the can. It's the art of being in the cave. So we're both in a silo in the cave working on things. And we would love to make some big progressive behind the scenes steps to be able to then say, all right, yeah, we're down to give interviews now, you know, but we're not there yet. So until the work is done, you know, the back end work of what we've got to get done is done. I think that we're going to hold off on conventions until we're like, here's stuff that we accomplished on our own. We're not out here just trying to huff books. We did all this back work. We invested all this money. We've got a real product on a multitude of different levels, animations, the interviews, and our books, multiple series, and we've got a couple of soft deals. Now we want to talk about where we're going to go, and we want to launch our campaign to build our basement. So again, planning and then action. And then after completion, we'll start to see the fruits of our labor.
This really becomes our year to invite the fans to join us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been kind of doing this all on our own and just sort of putting it out there. But now we can say to them, like, hey, the books are done. You can actually join us now, read the stories, find out what it is we've been geeking out about for 4 years, you know. and know that we've already pre-planned the ride for you. You know, this isn't get in your car with your friend. This is get on a roller coaster, you know, that's built and safety checked.
Awesome, dude. I'm excited for those interviews too. They sound really interesting. And I believe you just dropped me a link over here that I'm going to check out as well. And we'll drop it in the episode description as well. Do you guys have any other links? You guys want to do a quick shout out for the best places to find your guys' work and where we could see these announcements happening?
So WTFcomicbooks.com is our website. Instagram, we are all over Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. WTF Comics usually brings us up, but WTF Comic Books is usually, there was somebody else with a similar name at one point. So WTF Comic Books on Instagram, Facebook. You'll see our logo with the spiral signal thing going out. And then all of our books have their own social media as well. So if you find one you like, the Bondsman or Blue Ghost or Hourglass or Black Alpha or Amber or whatever it might be, their links are on the website. When you go to our titles on our website, you will see that we put in the bios for the creators. We try to link you to the artists. We try to link you to their social media. And some of these, we don't necessarily, it's not like we're making all these books. Like Blue Ghost is totally independent out of Results. So he's making them. We're just putting it in English so you guys can see it, because it is incredible. It's amazing how many good things there are out there that people just don't find. So that, I would say, our website's the best way. Right when you go to our website too, you can put in your email and join our newsletter, which we don't harass you. We're not sending it out once a week. We don't even always send it out once a month. If we've got stuff to tell you, then we'll send you an email, you know, and we try to make them fun and interactive and interesting. It's not just like, hi, we're still working on this, you know.
Honestly.
And I'll say a final piece, you know, if there's creators from around the world, like Blue Ghosts, you know, that need their books translated or whatever, we can't take on everybody at once, but we're always interested in great titles that are out there that need to be translated. And we would like to set up a cross-market translation where we take a Japanese book, translate it, and then we put it into Spanish and English. So that's a goal on our slate as well. We've done that a couple times now. But if you're an artist that's out there, or somebody that's heard our message or philosophy and love what you hear, please reach out. We'd love to get back to you and start building those connections around the world.
Awesome, dude. You guys are doing extraordinary, magnificent stuff, and I can't wait to see all this come to life. I can't wait to see your Kickstarters. I can't wait to meet you guys in person sometime at a convention. Thank you so much for today. Thank you for your insight and just being so open to the comic book community and so inviting to everybody as well to help, you know, change and elevate and just revolutionize indie comics the way we all have been. It's much needed, and more publishers like you are needed. More creators like you are very much needed as well. So I can't thank you enough for everything you guys are doing. And for all of our listeners and watchers, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We got 2 episodes coming out weekly. We have all sorts of stuff coming out this year. Don't forget to check us out at any of our conventions. Indie Creator Con is a big event that we're going to be helping out with, along with like Baltimore and all sorts of stuff. And, you know, don't forget to check out the CWS bookstore, where you could also find some of these books as well, where they've been utilizing it. And I forgot to even bring up how much that's been helping you guys, but we'll talk about that on another episode as well, with a bunch of cool other stuff. But thank you guys for all your time, and for everyone out there, thanks for hanging. Stay creative and stay inspired. Looking for high quality printing, fast turnaround, and the industry's best customer service? Look no further than Comix Wellspring. Trusted by thousands of indie comic creators, Comix Wellspring is proven to be the go-to comic book printer. So when you're ready to bring your comic books to life, go to comicswellspring.com and be sure to check out one of the best platforms to sell your physical and digital comics online, the CWS bookstore. Remember to subscribe, hit that notification bell to see our lives come out twice every single week on YouTube and podcast platforms. And also tag us when you share your favorite episodes and moments from the show. And remember, creators, thanks for hanging, keep creating, and stay inspired.